Recent reports said that the Big 12 had opened up expansion dialogue again, particularly with Gonzaga. Brett Yormark spoke at Big 12 Media Days earlier this week, and in this video, you'll find out what he had to say when questioned about Gonzaga and potential future expansion. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. Here on this channel, we talk college football, college basketball, and conference realignment, all from a Big 12 angle. If you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I'm live on Wednesdays and Sundays. The live shows are a blast with a great community of folks here. And you'll get content like this sprinkled in throughout the rest of the week. If you could like the video, I would much appreciate that as well. And leave a comment in the comment section. Love me, hate me, either way, all the same. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to support the channel that way also. I'm going to read to you a story from On3 that kind of aggregated Brett Yormark's quotes here from Big 12 Media Days that regards expansion. Story begins: since taking over as Big 12 commissioner, Brett Yormark has been nothing short of aggressive. He got out in front of a new media rights deal and landed his, quote, dream scenario by bringing in the four corner schools in the latest round of expansion. One of his top priorities, though, is to enhance the conference's standing in basketball. That's a reason why Gonzaga has come up in realignment rumors as recently as last week. And yes, remember, it was Seth Davis from The Messenger. He's a guy that's obviously well respected around the college basketball world. But he reported that conversations had started back up between Yormark and Gonzaga, and that Yormark made a pitch at the Big 12 meetings where he received permission to resume top-level discussions with the Bulldogs. Now, there has been a little bit of skepticism thrown on top of that since then as to the viability of actually getting that across the finish line, both from the Big 12 side and from Gonzaga's side. But there were multiple stories about that after the Messenger report came out from Seth Davis that was really basically just corroborated by every major college reporter in the field, in this area, saying that this is a thing that is happening. So it seems like that is legitimately on the table. You knew that Yormark would be asked about it when he got up on the podium at Big 12 Media Days in Kansas City. And what he said is that nothing is happening anytime soon. So whereas one of the articles that we really saw about this suggested that it could happen pretty soon, the Gonzaga thing, the rest were a bit more cautious with it, and certainly Yormark's public comments here would indicate that. Although, how much can you trust that? If it were about to happen, usually in the public eye, you would be fairly cautious about it as well. But Yormark said, quote, "There's nothing imminent, but I do explore all options that come to me. And if it creates value for membership, both short and long term, I'm going to pursue it even further. But right now, we love the makeup and composition of this conference, love the four corners that are joining us. They've already started to integrate the four schools. They've been attending meetings. We're strategizing on what next year looks like. So there's nothing imminent with respect to expansion." Again, kind of deflecting towards like, hey, we've got a lot on our plate right now with integrating four new schools this year, integrating four new schools next year. We're not going to go that expansion route right now. But again, we know that Yormark has always been clearly very basketball motivated, and I'm going to get to more on that in a moment. He's always been very basketball motivated, and so adding a top brand like Gonzaga is something that is going to really pique his interest. We saw all the reports about UConn, how much he really liked them, was trying to convince others that that would be a viable option if the four corners didn't work out. I think thankfully for everybody, we didn't have to get very far down that road, but it is something to remember. If it is basketball related and it can benefit the conference, it is probably something that Brett Yormark is thinking about and trying to do. Speaking of basketball, we've long heard about the concept of decoupling football and basketball rights, i.e. at the end of the next media cycle, the Big 12 could sell its basketball rights separately from its football rights and potentially create more money that way. Here is what Yormark had to say. There are a couple quotes here from Media Day. He said, quote, "I think basketball is undervalued, but it goes beyond just monetizing it. No sport connects better with culture than basketball. It's also a great catalyst for international growth. Basketball is growing in popularity, and it resonates with younger audiences. It will continue to grow and will play a huge role in the future of our industry." That is such a, like, if you could distill Brett Yormark down to one quote, that might be it right there. Because we know he said when he came in, he wanted to make the league younger, hipper, cooler. And he is right. The basketball connects with a younger audience. It is very popular. The NBA is wildly popular right now. When he talks about it being a part of the culture, connecting with the culture, so true. Basketball is what controls the culture. Yes, everybody loves the NFL, but man, basketball is really interconnected with the culture, particularly, again, if you're skewing younger. And then we know that Brett Yormark has been all about international growth. hosting the Kansas-Houston basketball game in Mexico, talking about like a bowl game, trying to get something else in Monterrey, perhaps. With all of that, it makes sense that he would love the game that is very, very international right now in basketball. So totally makes sense. And then he goes on about the TV negotiations, quote, "In our recent TV negotiations, we gave ourselves some optionality when you think about our back-end rights, not only to renew in the traditional format, but also to potentially break apart basketball from football. I think my job as commissioner, our job as a conference office, is to explore all options and to further monetize what we do and to create value for our member institutions. If a situation presents itself where we can create more value by decoupling football from basketball, we'll pursue it, but that doesn't mean we're going to do it." All right, that's actually a little bit more measured of a response than I would have expected from Brett Yormark there. Again, I think you have to take some of what he says with a grain of salt. I would expect it to happen, the basketball rights being decoupled when it really gets down to it, but at least publicly, he's still kind of not trying to show all of his cards. Maybe some motivation there beyond just the obvious. We got a future football schedule comment here. I think a lot of people are waiting very anxiously to see what that football schedule is going to look like next year with basically 8 new teams. I know that 4 are playing in the league this year, but it will still be jarring to see even the 4 that are there this year. And then with the 4 corner schools, this comes from KSL Sports. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark has a target date in mind for the first football schedule with a 16-team league. Yormark spoke to reporters to tip off Big 12 basketball media days, but he also brought up his plans for the future of the football schedule as a 16-team league. Yormark replied, "Hopefully earlier than January, sometime late November, December." Yeah, that sounds about right. So Yormark is hoping by November or December we would get that football schedule. And as far as what is being considered there, how they're putting it together, I'm sure a lot of people are also very curious and antsy about that. It says, quote, "Our football scheduling has been guided by a few key parameters: geography, competitive balance, historic matchups, and rivalries. More details will be released in the coming weeks when it comes to our football schedule." Those are unsurprising. Things that you would expect would be keys there. Yormark also announced that the Big 12 basketball tournament will be staying in Kansas City in all likelihood through 2031. Quote, "While nothing is definitive at this point, we are excited by the prospect of calling Kansas City home for years to come. We hope to finalize this by the start of basketball championships next spring." Maybe a bit of an upset there to some who I know is, and I understand why, kind of a common thought, like Yormark would maybe want to move it back to the Northeast, whether that's like Madison Square Garden, Barclays Center, something like that. But he got to experience the Big 12 tournament last year, and it is phenomenal in Kansas City. And apparently Brett Yormark agrees, at least enough, to keep it there through 2031. Basketball will also be utilizing a 20-game conference schedule next year. There were a lot of little news items to come out of this from Brett Yormark. Under the new 16-team Big 12 with Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, beginning in 24-25, the women's basketball conference schedule is expected to consist of 18 games, while the men expands to 20. And here's the Yormark quote: "Ultimately, it's what the coaches were looking to do as far as the 18 for women. You're going to play 3 schools twice, 12 once, and there will be a bye week." That's kind of where they settled. The men decided on a 20-game schedule. And even one final fun little nugget here. The conference is exploring some multimedia means of broadening the reach of basketball, including a weekly radio show on SiriusXM that highlights women's basketball and the so-called Olympic sports, and potential alternate broadcasts for women's basketball games on TV that will appeal to a younger audience and further connect our conference to culture. He referenced the NFL in an apparent allusion to its Nickelodeon and Toy Story themed broadcasts. You guys ready for Toy Story Big 12 basketball? I mean, I'm here for it. Whatever Brett Yormark wants to do to try and mix it up, be more fun, hip, and cool, I'm all for it. And you guys know that if you've been around this channel for very long. Please consider subscribing if you have not to this channel. We're talking Big 12 sports, football, basketball, conference realignment all day, every day here on this channel. Live shows Wednesday and Sunday. Make sure that you check those out. Like the video on your way out the door. I would much appreciate that. You can support me on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4. Sincerely appreciate each and every one of you. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.